Hey, good day, everyone, and welcome back to the Feather Prime and Talk podcast from the Automotive Trades Association. I'm Denis Cloutier, Executive Director of the ATA, and with us once again, our industry experts from Manitoba. At the bottom of the screen, we've got Ferd Klassen, Vice President of the ATA and owner of Niverville Auto Body. And then up beside me, we've got Norm Bruneau. He's the President of the ATA and owner of St. Cloud Auto Body. Norm, maybe tell us what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's good to be here. Nice to get together again. Always tough over the summer here, but I think we'll touch on the survey, the industry survey that the ATA sent out. I think there's some things that stuck out that are worth a discussion, specifically when it comes to admin cost, some of the frustrations around loss of use. RPS changes are always a hot topic and just general frustrations. So let's get into it.
All right, so let's get started and let's talk about the recent survey we sent out and some of the feedback and results we got from our members. There was a few items that jumped out, particularly from the comments and some information that we got from the answers to the question. But I think the top item that came back on feedback from customers and at the town hall that MPI recently held is just the ever increasing admin effort that you guys as shops are having to put into processing claims. Ferd, maybe I'll start with you if you want to comment on the admin effort and where you think things are heading and the challenges shops are facing.
Yeah, so I mean, let's just start with our own customers, our mutual customers, ours and MPIs. They're getting everly more educated on repair processes, their needs, their requirements, their requests are getting more and more communication pieces, how they want to be communicated, how often they want to be communicated with, the questions that they ask, and that's even before you've created an estimate. You bring the estimate in, the vehicle in, you create your estimate, you research it, you do all this work to potentially do this job in a few more weeks. So within that time, you've got to spend all the time researching RPS parts, which parts are best for that vehicle, how is that going to align with your RPS requirements. Administration is never ending. Then you've got your repair planning. So repair procedures need to be checked out. You need to know whether or not you've got the proper fasteners or glues, depending on your job. You got to know all these things in advance before the vehicle comes in. And this all takes somebody to do it. And it's a little different than it was 10 years ago. I mean, vehicle manufacturers are all kind of similar with their requirements for repair standards, and it was simple. You stocked a certain thing on the shelf, and it was there. But now somebody's got to spend the time, and it's hours. You've spent hours on this claim, working on the claim, communicating with the customer, and you haven't even touched the car yet. So yeah, it's getting more and more. Then throughout the process in the vehicle is in your shop, you update the customer numerous times. You deal with vendors, you deal with rental car companies, you deal with all these people that are related to the repair process, and then you got to work on closing the file. You've got to verify the part numbers have been correct. You've got to upload the proper invoices to meet the requirements for MPI. You've got to do quality control checks. You've got all these things that need to be done just to return the car back to the customer and collect your payment from MPI. So it's never ending. There's always something new coming about.
Maybe
Yeah, I
Norm, I'll
think
put a question to you. I mean, you're talking about Ferd's talking about the customer and just the change in the way we do business and the expectations. How much do you think the car park, the parking lot, is changing the admin effort, Norm?
Well, I think Ferd touched on that. He covered most of it. I think the way we repair cars and the way that we set ourselves up to repair cars has changed drastically. The requirements in equipment and training, and then putting a proper repair plan together ahead of time to fix these vehicles is crucial, right? That's going to be a make or break when that vehicle enters the shop. You need to be ready to work on it. It can't just sit around for days while you're figuring stuff out. So I think that has just evolved on its own, right? That's outside our control. That's outside MPI's control. That's just how uh, collision repair has evolved in all markets. But as customer expectation has changed. That's a huge thing. But also with MPI, there's more work on our plate, right? Direct repair, we're doing more of the work, and I think I'll speak for myself. I want to own as much of the repair process as possible because I can control the outcome and I can control the experience with the customer. That said, I never agreed to do all that for free either, right? It costs money to perform all those administrative tasks. So I think it's just a matter of balancing that out. There was a time where it was 4 techs to 1 admin staff. I believe that was actually one of the questions in the survey. And what are we at? 1-to-1 now, Dennis, or 1 to
Actually,
1.5?
we expected to be closer to 1-to-1, but the members that responded, we ended up at 1.7-to-1.
Okay,
Close to
interesting.
1-to-1.
Yeah. So it's a big shift, and I think it's just the way things are now. So I think MPI needs to adapt, and you could tell by the town hall, and you can tell by the survey, this is the number one thing on shops' minds. They need to be able to address that administrative burden. So definitely needs
All
to get
right.
looked at.
Yeah, I agree. And let's talk about the changes to the RPS program. And that was the survey came out before the changes to the RPS program, but recently there's been some changes. Maybe we can just update the members a little bit, take away some of the fear, and let them know, when does it impact? When does it start? Although they're getting a scorecard now, when does this impact their business? Ferd, maybe you
Yeah,
want to
I
jump
think
in on that first. Or Norm.
Yeah, I
Okay, go
think
ahead, Norm.
yeah. Sorry, I'll just
That's
butt
all
in
right.
whenever I feel like it, apparently.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say is that yeah, there has been a lot of questions surrounding when this starts, and I think the NTT is a little confusing because the first sentence right at the top, it says effective July 15th. But what's effective July 15th is that there'll be a parallel scorecard running at the same time as the current or the old scorecard. And your old scorecard is what counts until September. The first scorecard that will be released in October 15th will cover the September data, and that data will be with the new rules. So yes, July 15th, this comes into play, but we're running parallel scorecards. The old scorecard counts. That said, I've been told that if shops are in a position where they are going to fall out of compliance or potentially in a corrective measure, they will consider the new scorecard. And if you're within compliance in your new scorecard and not your old one, they'll use the new scorecard because they're not going to hold you to an old set of rule for 2 months before they roll you to a new one. So that's the information that's been shared with me. Ferd, I don't know
Right.
what your thoughts are.
100% accurate. Yeah, I would agree. That's how I understand it as well. And, the parallel scorecard is just for visibility for shops to see how the changes are affecting them, whether they need to make business decisions or change how they, procure parts, or whether they decide to work on a certain model of a vehicle. That's basically what it is for visibility and for shops to be able to make better choices.
All right. Well, we'll keep monitoring the RPS. We've got a number of shops participating with us as the ATA. They've agreed to share their information, and over the next 3 months, we're going to see how these changes are impacting shops. And we're hoping that it's an advantage to us, and it does make our scorecards improve. But we'll keep everybody up to date. Let's talk about loss of use. This isn't our issue. This is our policy. We don't sell loss of use. We encourage our customers to buy loss of use. But boy, do we hear about it in the end when we're repairing a vehicle if their loss of use is running out. And this is a policy sold by MPI. They have one policy that they sell, and then you guys get the feedback. And what kind of feedback do you get from customers on loss of use?
Well, you know what? The situations are different every single time, but anytime that there's a delay on a non-drivable car in a compound somewhere waiting for an estimator to look at it, that's usually the biggest time sucker for loss of use. I mean, the cars can sit there 1 to 2 to 3 weeks before it's estimated. I'm not exactly sure where MPI is in their estimating schedules now, but that can sure chew into the first 30 days, and 30 days is all you get. So never mind shops that are busy. They've got the delayed tow requests. They've got the 21-day delayed tow request still. That's another 3 weeks that the person is out of car. And to take the car in and and do a reinspection or reassessment on the collision damages before you even order any parts, that can take another week. So there really is an ample amount of time in that loss of use to allow people in today's environment to take advantage of what they're actually paying for. They're getting some coverage, but we have to remember that that coverage of loss of use isn't just for rental cars. That people can use it for other alternate forms of transportation, bus passes, taxis, Ubers, whatever they want. In conversation with their adjuster, they can get reimbursement for some of those things. That gives them the option to select which days they're actually using their loss of use. But that's not a widespread. Uh, most people don't know that. The common ratepayers don't know that they have those options. Maybe MPI can do a little bit of a advertising blitz with their call centers to educate our mutual customers on how to use loss of use. But in the rural setting, we don't have those options. We have loss of use or nothing. And to borrow a car for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks before you can get your car to a shop and find out whether they're actually going to repair the car or total loss the car, it's pretty tough because most families live with 2 and 3 cars in the driveway, and those cars are turning miles every day. Nobody has extra cars just sitting around very often. So maybe they need to look at their loss use policy. Maybe they need to have a tiered system that they offer customers for purchase. Maybe another level, maybe other options that are included in how they get paid. So I don't know. It's a pinch point for most shops. Overages on U drives is hard to swallow, and a lot of those things are out of your control. And the customer shows up and already has it, and you haven't even had the chance to put any adjustment on that claim. So by the time the cars make it into our shops, we're the ones getting the pressure. We're the ones that are seeing the comments from the customers. We're the ones that are expected to make miracles happen. And usually it's tough to do. So yeah, it's a challenge. Norm?
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah,
seeing the same
I
thing,
would.
I'm sure?
Yeah. Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. Biggest thing is educating the public, educating ratepayers on what the coverage is, how it works. And the second piece is they don't have an option to purchase more. And I think that's a big sticking point because MPI did bump it up to 60 days, which was great when we were seeing some of those parts delays and some of the other stuff that was going on during COVID. But at the end of the day, I think the option should be there for customers to purchase more if they feel that they require more. Um, in a perfect world, yeah, your car would be fixed in 30 days, but we're far from that reality at the moment. Just with a process that seems to be backlogged. So I think there's a few things that could be worked on there. It puts a lot of pressures on shops, courtesy cars. I think we're going to save that for a whole other podcast. I think that's just an expectation that's become, don't mind my horrible pun, but it's become the norm in the industry that shops are just going to pay for courtesy cars and give them the customers, and that's the buffer that's gonna fix everything, which is totally incorrect. So I think there's a few broken things there that need to be addressed, but yeah, certainly a point of contention with customers.
Well, as most things, I think, what often happens is when we hit a pinch point with a customer, it's usually the shop that ends up paying because they want to keep their
Correct.
customer happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit of this one. I find surprising, and we'll be careful how we talk about it. But the labor rates. We asked the question about what's your customer pay labor rate or your retail labor rate, and surprisingly, same as last year, we got over 50% of the shops have the labor rate is MPI's current labor rate. That's what they use. Norm, you want to express any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. It was very surprising to see. For one, we monitor our financials very closely, and I know that the rate that we're getting from MPI is not sufficient in today's world for the amount of training equipment, administrative, you name it. We're just not there, right? So with our private rates, that's where we have the opportunity to use that knowledge and set our rates accordingly. There's nothing holding us back as shops from setting whatever rates we want when it comes to private customer pay works. So shops have the ability to do that. So I don't know if there's just maybe a lack of maybe some shops just don't know that. The other thing I've heard from shops is that they feel that it could be an awkward conversation, right? When they write an estimate for a customer and the total is $2,000, and then they turn around and it turns into a claim and it's an $1,800 total, right? And I've had that conversation with my staff, and we've sat around and we've kind of come up with, a little bit of a script on how to have those conversations. At the end of the day, for us, in our situation here at St. Cloud Auto Body, is that if we want to do work for MPI, we have to do it at that rate. And at the volume of work that we're getting, we've found that to be something that we want to do, right? So we've agreed as a shop to do work for MPI at that rate. Given the opportunity to charge what it actually costs to run a shop, we're going to take that opportunity, and that's what we're going to charge. And I think that if you look at our shop rates, I mean, our private shop rate is still shy of $100 an hour. You can't step into an independent mechanical shop, let alone a dealership mechanical shop, to get anything done for close to those rates. So I think, while it might be tricky to explain at first to the customer, I think if you take the time, educate your customer at what they are actually paying for and comparing it to some of the other industries that are very closely related to collision repair, and they'll see that they're still paying a very fair rate for those collision repairs. So, Ferd?
I agree. If you had the opportunity to work for someone and on a bulk deal and you've agreed to a rate, that's unfortunately the rate. It's not always the best rate, but it's the work that comes through your door dominantly, and the other work that comes in, you've got the ability to charge whatever you need to charge for it, because there's no bulk there. So when you look at what customers' expectations are, I don't think they ever really look at the labor rate specifically on a customer pay estimate. They look at the grand total, and that decides for them whether they're going to make a claim and potentially take points off their license, or pay for it themselves. So that's what we have insurance for, and most people venture that route after. So at least that's my experience.
All right. Mm-hmm. The last thing I want to talk about this morning is just the overall mood of our members, of all the shops in Manitoba. And we asked a couple of questions on there, and just the general satisfaction with the industry and with MPI's response to the inflationary pressures has dropped significantly. It was actually over half of the members were satisfied last year. This time we've seen a significant drop in just their general satisfaction with the industry and with MPI. And I've just, if you guys want to give any thoughts on that, and where do, how do we move forward with that?
You want to take that
Okay,
loaded
Ferd,
one,
you get to go first, Ferd. Yeah,
That's a
I'll
tough
let
one.
you. Yeah.
it is a tough one.
That is a tough one, and I can honestly say, sitting on with a group of intelligent people at the Automotive Trade Association, I can tell you that there's a lot of hard work that goes in constantly to keep our industry moving, and our relationship great with MPI. Specifically, what shops are struggling with, I can't really speak to personally, but I mean, there is a time where things change, and apparently our industry is feeling it. So it needs to be looked at. There's definitely something going on, and the members are saying that they're feeling it as well. So we need to take a step back and take a big picture of what's going on, and see if we can step in and work that out.
Yeah, I think, I'm going to take a shot here and say that what we're seeing there is maybe some of the frustration with some of the day-to-day operations that are happening. Because if we look at the rates overall, we look at the response to inflation, there was a response. And at the end of the day, MPI did not have to do that. We were in a contract. We didn't have to do that. I think it was obviously in their best interest to do that. But I think some of the day-to-day frustrations are starting to really set in for shops. And these are the things that the front lines are having to deal with. Our staff interacting with MPI frontline staff. And I think that the relationship there is okay, but I think that some of the policies are really starting to eat away at people's patience with the process. And I think there was an overall, I think there was at first a little bit of leniency and understanding and maybe even hope that the consultative committees were going to get through some of those frustrations and address some of those. And I think people are starting to come out of the other side of it now and see that things are very slow moving and see that some of those frustrations aren't being dealt with on a day-to-day basis. So I think that's a little bit of what we're seeing. I could be completely off with that. Maybe I'm just speaking a little bit in terms of what we're seeing here at St. Cloud Auto Body. So where I am actually wearing my St. Cloud Auto Body hat. I was going to say I was going to take off my ATA hat, put on my St. Cloud Auto Body hat, but I think that that's what we're seeing here and I hear it from my staff at the front lines too, right? I hear it from my estimators. I hear it from my admin staff, where they're calling MPI about loss of use. They're calling MPI about, don't even get me started on accessories again, right? These are all things that, for a little bit of time, you can bear, you can deal with it if there's something being worked on and there's improvements coming down the line. But I think that has worn thin. And I think people are starting to see that things are not moving as quickly as they'd hope. And I think that's where we're seeing some of that frustration. Because if I'm not mistaken, Dennis, some of that, there was even, some of that poured onto the ATA, right, through that survey where there was a little bit of
Absolutely. Yep.
the satisfaction of members with the ATA. And actually, I don't know if we want to touch on that comment too. I think the comment specifically was in regard to the plastic repair process where, Dennis, you'll know the exact wording, so I'm going to go ahead and probably butcher it here, but I believe the comment was that, the particular shop wasn't satisfied with what MPI and ATA decided when it came to the plastic repair standard. And I think that, to a certain extent, we're getting looped into that conversation. But what I think shops need to remember and members need to remember is that this is a consultative process. MPI will ask us for input. They will consult with us, but ultimately will make their own decision. And, if we're going to use plastic as the example, I'll say here at St. Cloud Auto Body, I have zero interest in fixing more bumpers. That is just not something I want to visit. Rural setting, lots of stone chips, lots of unrelated damage, and we understand that's not part of the loss, but it still needs to be dealt with. So I think, from a shop perspective, there may be a little bit of a misunderstanding as to, did the ATA agree to this? No, we didn't agree to that. They consulted with us. And Ferd, you were in that committee specifically.
We got to remember that was a guideline that they set out. There was no actual instruction for anybody to fix any more plastic. It was just a guideline set out for shops to decide, to build a criteria for themselves based on those guidelines on how they're going to decide whether they're going to repair or replace. That's all it was. It wasn't any directive from anyone saying that any more plastic had to be repaired. But take a step back to the conversation or the points that you were making there, Norm. So it would be fair to say that shops are struggling with the additional red tape that they're feeling with the administrative process. And I've had a few shop owners contact me as well. And you've got your pre-labor interruption time that you're used to. We go into the MPI labor interruption where shops are given more freedom to do more things, and now we come out and we're back to that same system, which appears to be bogged down, appears to be slow. Communication is one of the things that I know we personally here struggle with, getting responses and replies back from people in a timely fashion. So I think some of that may be what shops could be experiencing, and their satisfaction is decreasing because of that, because they know what the potential is out there. Potential is that, if certain policies, certain procedures are moved out of the way, we could service our customers faster and we could service our customers better. So
yeah,
that's some of the suggestions that I received from some of the shops that reached out to me. So I just wanted to add that in there and see if that's kind of what you were kind of implying to. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, it's a good segue for us as we wrap things up. We encourage those that are listening. Most of our members check out the podcast. Give us your comments. Let us know your feedback on this. On exactly what Norm was just talking about, your frustrations, how the ATA should move forward in your opinion. Talk to us about loss of use. by all means, if you don't want to leave a comment on the YouTube channel, then drop us an email. You can send one to Norm, Ferd, myself, or just the ATA general email box. You can reply to one of the ATA emails that you get every week. There's so many different ways to get a hold of us, or just give us a phone call. Anyway,
For
with
sure.
that, let's wrap up this week's podcast, and don't forget, subscribe, like, notifications, all the usual YouTube stuff, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Take care.